And welcome to the Building a Retirement Plan That Lasts podcast with Gary Bowman. Gary, this is episode number 2 of your podcast. There are some people who may have been listening for a while who have come back to listen to the first couple of episodes to get an idea of who they're listening to, where this guy came from, and what he's all about. So let's welcome those people in, as well as those who just stumbled across this and found it by happenstance. It's good to see you again. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right. And the theme of this particular episode is the purpose behind work. Not just everybody's work, but your work in particular. So let's start with, why do risk to retire? What risk? As if we didn't know. What risk do retirees face when their plan is built primarily around investment returns? So that's a good place to start, and a good way to get to know you a little bit better as well.
Well, I think the biggest risk you run into, if that's how you build your plan, is just on market returns, is that you have your expectations might be a little lofty, thinking the markets are going to go up and save you. So you end up making bad decisions. If the market pulls back, you have a correction, which happens in the markets. Next thing you know, you're making emotional decisions about your money. You're thinking, "Oh my God, did I make a mistake?" So it creates a lot of anxiety. So the risk is making a bad decision, an emotional decision. So that's probably the biggest one I'd think of.
Well, how do you help people avoid that? I mean, I'm assuming, it's like, why do so many retirement plans look pretty good on paper? But they fail. What is it that they fail to address in real life? It kind of feels like you've hinted at that in that answer a little bit.
Well, yeah. Well, the plans are built through software, and you put in the data. They look really nice. They're pretty. They got grass. It could maybe have some color to them, right? They're pretty. So, well, what happens is that's a snapshot in time of the data, first of all. So it's not a fluid plan. It's not something that's looking into the future and scenarios. Another thing is, those could be 50, 60, 100 pages long. And what I've found is most people don't read them, and most people don't understand them if they do read them, because it's very complex. It's a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So I think that they look great, and it's a good selling point, I guess you might call it. But in my opinion, you can do it much simpler and make it more clear.
No, I hardly agree. I mean, I've looked at financial plans that are long, and I thought these are deliberately long because
right.
They feel like they're hiding something, or they don't intend for me to read them all. So how should a person's lifestyle, their family dynamics, and most importantly, health, factor into financial decisions and retirement planning, Gary?
Well, first of all, your lifestyle is, when you go into that stage of life where now you're not getting a paycheck, your paychecks are coming from your pension or Social Security or your savings. Maybe you have real estate, whatever it is, right? So, so basically, your lifestyle is now going to have to be supported by your assets. So to make it financial is when you're talking about budgets before, and so budgeting super important, and spending. So your budget's going to change when you retire, because now you have maybe some hobbies you want to do. You want to travel. So your lifestyle is going to then help us to design the plan to help meet those needs, right? So on health issues, I would say that the biggest thing we're seeing right now is, if you retire before your the Medicare age, is the cost of healthcare. It's super expensive.
Yeah.
And so these are all budgeting things, right? It's all about money, but the when you're doing the plan, your lifestyle is yours. It's you. It's how you want to live your life. And then that goes right into the family dynamics. Well, a lot of times you retire in your retirement age, but guess who's already been retired for 20 years, or in my case, my dad's case, 38 years. They're older. So you have things come up like you might have to take care of your father or your mother, and what kind of things have you done to help them prepare for potentially dementia, Alzheimer's, disability, things like that. There's other family dynamics that we see because we're doing this a long time. You've got divorced children come back and move in, and they bring all the grandkids with them, it's stuff like that. So these are things that, like we just talked about with the plan, like you can do as a static plan with software that gives you a 100-page report, but it doesn't deal with these types of scenarios. These are real life things, and these are things that you need to really be looking at.
But how do you get into that? How do you delve into that for a lot of people? Like, because I think and I'm serious. I think a lot of people think retirement is a set of financial figures. I've saved this much money. Do I have enough money? Am I going to run out of money?
Yeah, right.
Those are the questions people wonder the most about. I have a friend who, he just retired. And he travels a lot. He intends to get a lot of travel in before he gets too old to do it, as a matter of fact. Is that the kind of thing that people can plan for? Because it seems to me that it's like, I look at it and think, well, good luck. I don't know how you're quite going to do that, but he seems very confident about it.
Well, you can plan for it. It's one of those things where, if, say, I was working with your friend and we sat there, he goes, I want to travel. We go, okay, so where do you want to go to? And how often do you want to travel? How long are you going to be away? And then by asking more detailed questions and breaking it down from I just want to travel, it's like, well, what do you want to do, and how far do you want to go, and how long? What's that going to cost? It all comes down to budgeting and how you're going to pay for it, and then how is that going to affect when you stop traveling? Because he said, I want to get all my traveling done now. Why? A lot of people do that. I'm healthy. I want to do my traveling now, and the things that are going to require me to be able to be more flexible and more stronger to move around. And then later in life, I'll probably cool down a little bit because I can't move as well. Your health comes into play, right? So you can definitely plan for it. It just takes the right questions and looking at the numbers and how it's going to work.
And you mentioned family dynamics. I mean, my nightmare is that my kids all decide to move back in with their kids.
Right. No,
I love them. Don't get me wrong in case they hear this podcast. I love every one of you. But it's like my nightmare is they suddenly all appear one day and go, we've got to move back in, Dad.
Yeah, it's not that you don't love your kids and the grandkids, but it's just, it changes your whole life. If that was to happen, now you got to pivot, and you're going to have to make some changes and maybe have some other conversations with them about, okay, you can stay for this long, or this is what we can do.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. It's not on a financial plan report that's generated through that we talked about earlier, right? This is real life, man. This is real life.
It is real life. And it's, speaking of real life, I'm curious, what kind of critical conversations have you found that are often avoided by clients of yours because they are uncomfortable and they don't want to talk about what may happen or what needs to be prepared for?
Well, probably the most obvious is bringing up the fact that one of a spouse may pass away.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to deal with that. And I've had many people come in and we talk about the retirement, the estate planning issues. And several times I've had them say, well, we've been working on that for a couple of years. We're kind of stuck on this or stuck on that. And they don't want to deal with that finality. It's very difficult. The other one thing that people is disability. You're probably much more likely to be disabled than you are to pass away if you retire at, say, 60 years old, and you're probably going to need some help. So talking about, like, if one of you becomes disabled, or once again your health diminishes and you need help, how are you going to deal with that, and how's that going to affect your lifestyle and your marriage,
Yeah.
And speaking of that, and I think this is something that is very difficult to bring up, is the question of, so how's your marriage? Are you guys really close? Are you really both on the same page as far as this plan? Because a lot of people don't see each other, whether if they're both working outside the house for many, many years. They're weekend warriors, and then they're 24/7 together.
Right.
How compatible are you going to be? Have you talked about it? Have you thought about it? And I think that's just things that people should think about, how they can, if they need time away or they have separate lives while they're building their retirement up, and then when they get retired, they might have different things that they do. They do go out on and do weekends with with separate friends, or
Sure.
they may golf and they're in a golf club, so they get some time away, so they don't need to be together all the time. It might relieve some stress they might feel.
We're laughing though, but it's true. I don't care how much, you can be completely in love with the partner in your life, but the truth is that during your normal work life, you're not typically working together. You're typically working separately from one another. And you've got all this time, and I think a lot of people have yet to entertain the idea that suddenly you could both be in the same place at the same time for a really long time. How are you going to deal with that one?
How are you going to deal with it? Have you thought about it? Well, and then people say, well, I do my own thing on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and she does her thing on the same time. And then we get together a couple times a week because we have these mutual friends or social networks that we hang out with. And so, yeah, it's just a topic, and there's so many different topics that you can just talk about on the surface, but you need to delve into them deeper. Yeah. And that's why, back to this whole thing, is it's not just about finances. This is like real life. These are lifestyle things that we're talking about. We're talking about health. We're talking about fitness. We're talking about a lot of other things, social networks, your interpersonal relationships with your family, and even your own spouse or your significant other.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you about the health thing. I think a lot of people make an assumption, even though they may be on a bunch of different drugs, they make an assumption their health's going to be fine, and they don't consider all of the potential costs and ramifications of the state of their health. Have you found that true in some cases with clients?
Yeah, that's one of those things. Is if you retire healthy at, say, 60 again, and you're retired, and you're not really thinking about what happens as people age. Obviously, things start to break down, and so it's hard for some people to realize that they're going to need, or potentially are going to need, some help. And then maybe a lot of clients, as they've gotten older, they go from having the lifestyle of traveling and doing these things that they want to do to they look at their calendar and they're doing doctor's appointments, having surgeries, recovery. So and that's probably the easier part of healthcare. If it gets to people who need care, they need someone to be watching them all the time because they can't perform the functions of dressing or eating and stuff like that. So these things you don't want to think about, and then you get thrown in them. I have a good friend of mine who right now has been caretaking for his wife for several years, and it's very difficult, and it's one of those things that, if you talk about it, and then it makes it easier because you have a plan. Everything's about planning. I'm a planner, so I like to plan everything out. So,
then it leads me to the last question of this particular episode is, given all of these different factors and given the things that we were just talking about, what does a comprehensive retirement plan actually look like with you?
Well, comprehensive would be a plan that looks at your lifestyle and how you picture your retirement to be. This phase is a new phase of life. So the way I look at it is that first of all, you need to figure out what you're going to do, and we just already talked about if you're going to travel,
right?
How long, stuff like that. If you want to take up a hobby, what are those hobbies going to be? How much do you want to do? So the lifestyle part is really important because it goes right into the budget. So you kind of know what it costs to your utility bills and stuff like that. Now you're adding some other things in there. So the budgeting is really super important, knowing your expenses, knowing your cash flow. So developing a good cash flow statement, a good budget, knowing what you want to do with retirement, and then how do you want to spend time with family and friends and your social networks. So it's using this comprehensive type of a an approach that we're looking at a lot of different angles, which we've touched on today with, like I said, health and fitness and your finances, obviously. And, these are all really super important things to build. And then at the end, we haven't really touched on it much, but there's risk that we have in retirement, just even not in retirement, that maybe to look at to cover. And then you've got your estate planning issues and things like that. These are, we talked about the tough decisions, the things that are hard to talk about, disability, death, and stuff like that. So a comprehensive plan touches on all of it, and it all coordinates and it fits together like a puzzle. I always explain it to my clients, like, you've got all the pieces. We've got them all right here on the table. My job is to make it clear and make it so that you understand it. And so when we execute the plan, you know exactly how it's going to work and you understand it because we've worked together on it. We've collaborated on this plan together and along the way. And now we know each other very well. We trust each other. And now you can go and live the life you want to live. And on the other side of the coin, you also have the situation where this is a living, breathing thing. This is not just a document that you put on the shelf and you forget about. This is something that you really are going to be changing, and things are going to happen in your life and you're going to have to pivot. And so we're constantly working the plan based on changes that may happen or changes that you want to make. Maybe it's not even a tragedy or something that happens in your life. Maybe it's just something you want to do different. Mm-hmm. You decided that's not how I want to live my life. So it's...
Yeah, you may decide I'm bored with this or I don't like that. But I like the point that you're making, which is a retirement plan is like life. It's not static. It's dynamic and it changes. And, you like working with people so that they understand that, and you like constructing retirement plans that incorporate that into it. And it sounds to me like it becomes a plan that's an ongoing conversation because things do change. That's life, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely an ongoing project. That's how, when you're doing it, I think in my philosophy, the way I do it, that's how you build these relationships, because it's an ongoing plan. It's something that you're working with, and it's intimate. It's something that is very personal to people. And so as we continue to go through, and I've worked with some people for over 20 years plus, and I mean we're very close. So that's how I like my clients and me to be. We're friends as well as clients, and we're all part of the same family and working together. And so it's exciting. I really like doing it.
Yeah. So if there's anybody who's listening to this podcast who is struck by this conversation, who thinks maybe they'd like to reach out to you and explore possibly a relationship with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Where should they go?
They should go over to my website, which is bowmanretirementplanning.com. And it'll have all sorts of information about my company and a place to download a document that would help them with organizing some of the information we've talked about today, as far as budgets and where their assets are and stuff like that. Yeah, they can use that if they don't call me, but we'll have a calendar on there that gives dates and that they could contact us if they'd like. So that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
All right, do that. And for those of you listening and you don't have it's not an opportunity for you to write anything down. Don't worry, this information is in the show notes. You can check those later when you've got a chance to write down things. So fear not. The other thing you could do also, just do yourself a favor and hit the follow button, become a subscriber. Subscribers get notified every time Gary drops new episodes, and they can automatically give them a listen if they so choose, which we hope you will do, by the way. So, and if you like the podcast, please tell people about it. A word from another human being to another human being, premium stuff in these days. Word of mouth, it was much appreciated as a tool of promotion. So until next time, I'm Bill Tucker on behalf of Gary and everybody behind the scenes at Bowman Financial. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Building a Retirement Plan That Lasts. If you enjoyed this episode, click the follow button so you can be notified when new episodes are released. To learn more, visit our website at bowmanretirementplanning.com. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Custom Wealth Management, Inc. is a registered investment advisor. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Custom Wealth Management, Inc. and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advice may be rendered by Custom Wealth Management, Inc. unless a client service agreement is in place.